Chapter 1, Columbus Day. The Ruhar hit us on Columbus Day. Every country had a name for the day the Ruhar attacked. The common name that stuck after a while was Columbus Day. I guess that makes sense. There we were, innocently drifting along in the cosmos on our little blue marble, like the Native Americans in 1492. Over the horizon come ships of a technologically advanced, aggressive culture, and bam! There go the good old days, when we humans only got killed by each other. So Columbus Day, it fits. When the morning sky twinkled with what we later learned were Ruhar warships jumping into high orbit, we were curious. When power plants, refineries, factories, and other industrial sites around the planet started getting pounded from orbit with hypersonic railgun darts, we were shocked. For me personally, when a Ruhar combat transport dropped out of the sky and skidded across a potato field outside my tiny hometown in northern Maine, that was when I became officially alarmed. It was a Monday morning in early October, the Columbus Day holiday in America. I was home on leave from the Army, visiting my folks, taking a break after my battalion got rotated home from peacekeeping duty in Nigeria. What a shit job that was. I was happy to be home in the States. My leave was ended by a burning streak across the sky as the Ruhar transport came directly over my truck, arced over the lake, and crashed in the Olofson's potato field, plowing up dirt and potatoes until its nose was half submerged in a pond. It wobbled side to side for a minute, with a screaming sound coming from its engines. Then it took off and flew low and unsteadily over the tree line toward the center of town, trailing smoke from its underside. Our supposed allies, the Kristang, think that Ruhar assault transport was damaged during the drop from orbit and fell short of its intended target, since that is the only possible reason the Ruhar would have invaded Thompson Corners, Maine. Hell, I didn't want to be there anymore. That's why I joined the Army in the first place. My hometown is nice enough, simply nothing special. There's potatoes and cattle and sheep and other farming, of course. And some people like my dad had jobs at the big paper mill down in Milliganak. And you could get by with some lumbering, working as a hunting or fishing guide, a little welding on the side, whatever. Nobody in northern Maine relies on one job. Anyway, Thompson Corners is not the sort of vital strategic target that military planners would think of when deciding where to drop from orbit a combat transport with a dozen or so heavily armed troops. The Ruhar troops, cute and furry bewhiskered bastards that they are, no doubt waited until their transport finally skidded to a stop on the front lawn of the elementary school in the middle of town, popped the door open, gazed in awe at the magnificent vista of Thompson Corners, and asked the pilot where the fuck they were. Soldiers are soldiers, whether they have fur, skin, or scales. So logically, the Ruhar lobbed a missile at the most imposing structure in the area, the potato warehouse, and took it out in impressive fashion. I mean, they blew the hell out of it. Those soldiers must have had something against potatoes. Next, they destroyed the two bridges across the Scannicut River, the railroad bridge and the old concrete highway bridge that's been there since it was built by FDR's Works Progress Administration in the 1930s. We'd had a lot of rain, and the river was running high, so with the bridge out, the only way for me to get into town was to drive all the way to Woodford and cross the river there. Like the old New England joke, you can't get there from here, right? Nice idea if the roads hadn't been clogged with panicked traffic and 100 other people didn't have the same idea I had at the same time. When I saw that assault ship coming in, trailing smoke behind it and headed for the center of Thompson Corners, I was already in my parents' pickup truck on my way into town to pick up my sister from her friend's house. It was 10 minutes after the first sites got hit. The radio said the governor had just declared a state of emergency, urged everyone to remain calm, then all communications went out. No radio, no cell phones, no TV, no electricity. I didn't need to wait for instructions. I was going to pick up my kid sister, get back home, and hunker down with my family until I figured out what the hell was happening. Behind the seat was my father's bird-hunting shotgun and a box of shells that were good for quail and not much else. Shows how clearly I was thinking that morning. All my Army gear, including my rifle, were back at Fort Drum in New York State. I was, after all, on leave. Coming over the hill, I saw the ruins of the bridges, and nearly crashed into a line of traffic that was trying to get into town like I was. Bill Geary, a volunteer firefighter and a retired captain from the Maine National Guard, was getting people organized to drive over to Woodford and come into Thompson Corners using the old fire road. I, like a dumbass, shouted that my truck had four-wheel drive. Almost everybody in northern Maine has four-wheel drive, even if it's only a beat-up old Subaru. Since I was last in line, I got turned around first, and three guys whose car had gone in a ditch jumped in my truck. We roared off like the cavalry coming to the rescue in a movie. By the time we fought through outbound traffic to get across the bridge in Woodford and bounced along the poorly maintained fire road halfway toward town, the Ruhar had already secured the center of Thompson Corners, which was empty because no humans had waited for an engraved invitation to get the hell out of there. One sheriff's deputy panicked and fired off a couple shots with his 9mm service weapon until the Ruhar got annoyed and took out the shell station he was hiding in with what looked like an anti-tank rocket. I've seen Ruhar up close since then, plenty of times. No, they don't eat humans, and no, they don't kill babies. Believe the propaganda if you want. I know what I've seen. If that sheriff's deputy hadn't opened fire, the Ruhar might not have killed a single person in town. I couldn't blame the Ruhar. If some idiot was taking pot shots at me, I'd light him up with a rocket too. I know because I'd done the same thing in Nigeria. Anyway, the Forest Service gate across the fire road was locked. We wasted 5 minutes while a guy 3 trucks ahead of us tried blasting the lock with a shotgun. Surprise! The Forest Service had anticipated somebody trying that, and that lock wouldn't budge. So a guy rammed the gate and busted both the gate and the radiator of his truck, which then needed to be pushed off the road before the rest of us could squeeze by and drive through. Yeah, everybody has a story from that day. This is my story, so shut up and listen. One thing I've learned is that Ruhar Army grunts are like grunts across the galaxy. They want to get the combat over with and get back to their barracks, or dens in their case. Did I hate them? Hell yes, but I don't think they meant to kill people, at least except as collateral damage. Whatever their objective was on Earth, these troops had missed their landing zone and were making the best of the situation. Everybody would have been better off if those Ruhar had sat in their busted transport with their thumbs up their asses, called the Ruhar version of air, and waited for a tow truck. Combat ops don't work that way. Something gets fucked up on every mission. You adapt and do the best you can to accomplish your objective. This group of Ruhar decided their objective was to secure Penobscot County, whether that made sense or not. The Kristang tell us the Ruhar's most likely plan was to destroy our industrial infrastructure and knock us back into the Stone Age, so we'd be no threat to them. If that was their original objective, they missed it by a couple 100 miles when they landed in Thompson Corners. The Kristang were mostly telling the truth about why the Ruhar hit us, although they lied about everything else, which I'll get to eventually. We shouldn't even be fighting the Ruhar. They aren't our enemy, our allies are. I'd better start at the beginning. My name is Joe Bishop. I was 20 years old on the day the Ruhar attacked Earth, a specialist in the U.S. Army. Before the Army cut it, I had slightly longer than medium-length hair, an indeterminate blonde-brown color, which I got from my mother. She called the color mouse fur brown and had dyed her own hair a golden blonde as long as I could remember. Blue eyes I got from both my parents, and my height at 6 feet 3 inches definitely came from my father's side. My mom barely stands 5'4" in her stocking feet. In high school, I played third base on the baseball team, wide receiver on the football team, and was a backup shooting guard on the basketball team, although I didn't play basketball my senior year. Truth is, I wasn't a star athlete at baseball or football either. I worked hard, put the team first, and we won our share of games. When it came time to send out applications to colleges, I didn't know where I wanted to go to school or what I wanted to be when I grew up. Other than knowing that, I didn't want to sit behind a desk all day, and I wanted to get out of Thompson Corners. My father had been in the Air Force for a couple years. Then he went into the reserves as a mechanic, same type of job he did at the paper mill. He liked working with his hands, fixing stuff, and I kind of did too. Money was tight, and I didn't want to bury myself in debt with student loans, so the military sounded good to me, too. When I'd signed up for the Army, I did it because I wanted to serve my country and because the Army would pay for college. The life also appealed to me. I loved the outdoors, camping, hunting, fishing, hiking, canoeing. The training was tough, sure, nothing that I didn't expect, and I was proud to get through basic and be assigned where I wanted, the 10th Mountain Infantry Division in Fort Drum, New York. Peacekeeping duty in Nigeria wasn't what I would have wished for, but we got orders, and I went. I was surprised that peacekeeping involved killing so many people, but it is what it is. So now you know why I was laying under a bush atop a small ridge that overlooked the center of my hometown, staring at that busted Ruhar transport ship and trying to figure what, if anything, we should do. That is one big damned hamster, bish. You ain't lying, Tom Paulson said as he handed the binoculars back to me. What are we going to do? I don't know yet. Let me think. There were plenty of military veterans around my hometown. I had one of them with me, but Tom had been a Navy supply clerk 20 years ago, and I was Army infantry with recent combat experience and on active duty. I guess it made sense the others were looking at me for ideas. They knew I'd been in combat in Nigeria, but fighting disorganized, homegrown militia fanatics in the bush was totally different from tangling with giant space hamsters in my hometown in northern Maine. God damn, where are all the gun nuts when you actually need them? Is this all we got? I looked in dismay at the collection of hunting rifles, shotguns, and the odd 9mm handgun. Everybody in Thompson Corners had a gun because everybody hunted, or at least needed to keep bears away from their backyard bird feeders. Come on, nobody has an old M60 in the attic. Maybe an AK. Hell, bish, I want to kill a moose so I can eat it, not vaporize the damn thing, Tom said. Hunting licenses ain't cheap. All right. Me too. I looked through the binos again, at the hamsters patrolling the streets of my hometown, at the dark smoke coming from the potato warehouse, across town by the railroad tracks, which was still burning, at the hamster shuttle, or landing craft, or infantry assault ship, or whatever they called it. Squat and ugly and powerful looking, with a banged-up nose and a bent wing, and a thin stream of white smoke coming from the belly as it sat on the front lawn of the elementary school. Hamsters, we have other names for them. Rats, weasels, rodents, but with their fine golden fur, round faces, and whiskers, what they most look like are hamsters. Except hamsters aren't 6 feet tall, wearing body armor, helmets, and goggles, carrying evil-looking rifles, and coming down from orbit in an assault ship. That I know of. I mean, I never owned a hamster, so what do I know? We didn't know they were hamsters until one of them in the doorway of their ship, maybe the pilot because he didn't have a rifle, took his helmet off, got something from his pocket, and started eating it. He got yelled at and put his helmet back on, but not before we saw his furry head and hamster ears. They weren't exactly hamsters, but close enough. Susie Tobin lifted her eye from the scope of her 30-06 hunting rifle. What about the quarry? They have dynamite, right? Susie was about 5 feet nothing. Her day job was a teacher at the regional middle school, and looking at her, you wouldn't think she could even lift her old Army surplus rifle. But I'd seen the racks of deer antlers tacked up on the south side of her barn, so she sure knew how to use it. What are we doing with dynamite? Diego scoffed. Run up to that ship of theirs and throw it through the door? You wouldn't get within 100 yards before they cut you down. She's right, I said, thinking of the hell that IEDs cost us in Nigeria. They were a problem on the roads, but especially dangerous when we were patrolling a village, where sightlines were limited and there were plenty of places to conceal a bomb. Patrolling like the hamsters were doing right now. Pairs of hamsters were checking out buildings in the center of town, which, considering it's Thompson's Corners, wasn't much. You may think that, being the Columbus Day holiday, there would have been lots of tourists in town when the Ruhar dropped in for a visit. If you think that, you've never had the good fortune of visiting my hometown. Columbus Day is a big leaf-peeping holiday in New England, a weekend when city folk from down south drive out to the country to see the colorful foliage on the trees, stay in quaint little inns and bed and breakfast places, and take lots of pictures. We do get tourists in our part of the Great North Woods, but not for leaf peeping. By Columbus Day, a lot of the trees around here have already dropped their leaves, and our part of Maine is pretty flat anyway, plus the pine trees don't turn color. People come here for canoeing, fishing, hunting, and snowmobiling. There isn't a whole lot of that going on the first part of October, so the town was pretty empty when the Ruhar crash landed, the day being a school holiday and all. Damn good thing, too. I couldn't imagine what would have happened if the elementary school had been full when the Ruhar took control of the town. I didn't have to imagine that scenario, since I'd already seen that in the movie Red Dawn. The good one made way back when Reagan was in office, not the crappy one they made later. Anyway, I had an idea. Susie, your father works at the quarry, right? You and Tom get us dynamite, detonators, wires, whatever we need to blow something up remotely. I had no idea how to do that, having never even seen a stick of dynamite. Diego, stay here and watch the hamsters, see where they patrol, especially how often they go by the old town hall, which was now home to the town's only diner and an insurance agency. Stan, Deb, see if you can find a truck or van down there that we can get started. Big enough to fit a couple people in the back, something covered. Not an open truck bed. Keep to this side of town. You don't want to cross Route 11, or the hamsters will see you. If you find something, drive it over to Red Brook Road and leave it there. We'll meet back here. Okay, Bish, Tom nodded. What are we going to do? I took one more look at the Ruhar, noting the disposition of their troops without even thinking about it. Seeing where they were patrolling through the town and where they had defensive positions around their ship. We're going to the dentist. You have got to be kidding me, I blurted out. Bish, Stan said defensively, this is the best we could find. It's either this or an old Dodge Neon. Most people got in their cars and left in a hurry, it looks like. There aren't a lot of cars left on this side of the river, Debbie added. Yeah, but... Tom shook his head. There is no fucking way we can drive this. We're fighting an alien invasion. We cannot drive this thing. I had to agree. Except for one thing, it was a perfect truck. They'd found a delivery van, like a FedEx truck. It was in pretty good mechanical condition. The tires weren't bald. There was some rusted out spots around the wheel wells, but nothing serious. It had big back doors so several people could get in or out fast, and they reported that it ran and shifted well, with no squeaky belts or squealing brakes. They'd found it behind the Davis Brothers garage, where it must have been getting the interior rebuilt, because the inside was stripped other than the driver's seat. It was a good truck, except for that one thing. Barney. Barney, the big purple cartoon dinosaur with the perpetual stupid grin. Barney and Smurfs, Mickey Mouse, unicorns, and a lot of other fictional characters were painted on the truck. Whoever decided which characters to paint on the truck had made interesting choices like, why was Iron Man waving to the Smurfs? And was that Darth Vader down near the right front fender? Or had someone started painting black primer to cover up a rust spot and decided to get creative? Most of the characters were poorly painted. It took me a minute to realize that what I thought was a sitting Buddha was supposed to be Winnie the Pooh. Winnie the Buddha? It was an ice cream truck, in case you hadn't guessed yet. A ridiculous ice cream truck that I was fairly certain didn't have permission to use any of the trademarked characters painted on the side. Also, instead of the familiar Mr. Softy logo, this one had a poorly stenciled Super Softy logo. How could ice cream be super soft? Was it melted? This was clearly a bandit ice cream truck, the kind that I pictured furtively roaming suburban neighborhoods of a big city, selling expired ice cream and trying to avoid local authorities. The giant purple Barney plastered across both sides and the stuffed Barney strapped to the hood were impossible to avoid. Whoever owned this truck must really, really like Barney. We could throw a quick coat of paint on it, Stan suggested. We are not taking time to repaint the damn thing, I growled. I didn't like the idea either, but this truck is what we had to go into battle with. Besides, the hamsters won't know who Barney is. They may think he's a fierce predator. Even I didn't believe that one. Oh, for Christ's sake! Susie was exasperated. You idiot men are afraid to ride around in a truck that says softy on it? Get over yourselves. I'll drive the damn thing. Joe, what's the plan? Go, go, go! I shouted along with Stan as we jumped in to sprawl on the floor of the ice cream truck. Susie didn't need to be told twice. She hit the gas as we were still in the air. Stan would have slid right out the back of the truck if Deb hadn't gotten hold of his shirt collar. Tom kicked Stan's feet inside and slammed the back door shut, just as the truck bounced over a big pothole and Tom landed on his ass on top of the Ruhar soldier. The hamster grunted, which told us it was still alive. I hadn't been completely sure of that when we grabbed it. Looking back, it was a stupid plan, and we got lucky. I'd noticed the hamsters went through the alley between the diner building and the hardware store next to it. While the rest of us were off gathering supplies, Diego had watched and confirmed the hamster patrols went through that alley regularly, looking in windows and knocking open doors to look inside. They were doing that all over town. I chose the diner because there was a short dirt road that led from the river right to the back of the diner. The road went through woods and had good cover most of the way. We'd had a lot of rain from a nor'easter the week before, so the river was almost at spring flood stage and was really roaring as it went over the rocks and under the bridge. It made enough noise to cover the sound of the truck backing up behind the diner. Dynamite was placed inside the diner, up against the brick outside wall. We blew it up as the hamster soldiers got halfway down the alley. None of us knew how much dynamite to use, so we used too much. It collapsed most of the wall into the alley. Even the ice cream truck got hit with stray bricks. No matter, our improved bomb did what it was supposed to do. It knocked those two hamsters silly and buried them under bricks. Tom, Stan, and I grabbed the hamster that was closest to us. It also was least covered with bricks. Debbie covered us with a shotgun as we hauled it out of the alley. Tom and Stan each got hold of an arm and I held its feet. We scrambled down the alley, tripping on bricks, and tossed the hamster in the back of the ice cream truck. It was a stupid plan. Diego was watching from the hill with a walkie-talkie that Susie got from the quarry. She had the other unit in the truck. Diego reported that as soon as the dynamite exploded, a half-dozen hamsters sprinted from their spaceship. Another 30 seconds, and they would have caught us. And if for some reason, like none of us really knowing how to use dynamite, our bomb hadn't exploded, those two hamsters would have walked to the back of the alley and seen the truck that wasn't there before. I didn't like our odds against alien soldiers with body armor and advanced weapons. Luck was with us that day, even as Tom fell again, this time into the button that controlled the ice cream truck's music system, and Turkey in the Straw blared out of the rooftop speakers as the truck bounced and skidded down the gravel road along the river. "Shut that damn thing up!" Susie yelled at Stan. She had enough to do driving the truck. There was no seat belt for the driver. That was one of the items removed when they stripped the interior, and Susie's feet barely reached the gas pedal. Still, she had that sucker on the floor and we were moving. Stan punched buttons and the music changed to Camptown Races, then Pop Goes the Weasel, then a couple video game theme songs I couldn't name, before Stan finally got the stupid thing to stop. I never felt like such a total idiot in my life, trying to hold down an alien soldier in the back of an ice cream truck, my chin getting bashed into the metal floor of the truck as moronic music blasts out of speakers and Barney's evil twin grins maniacally from both sides. Our truck shot through a gap in the trees along the river, a clear space of about 50 yards. This is where I figured the hamsters were going to shoot us. They had a clear shot for a couple of seconds at least. Why they didn't shoot, I think, is by that time the hamsters who reached the bombed-out alley realized one of their own was missing and guessed it was in our truck. Anyway, we made it. The truck flew across the gap. Then the land rose slightly between us and the center of town. And then Susie was standing on the brakes to slow the truck for a curve. After that, we bounced up onto a paved road, and Susie put the pedal to the metal. While on pavement, with a smoother ride, Tom and I got the hamster's hands tied behind its back, tied its legs together, and I started pulling off its gear. We had it under 4 lead vests, the kind dentists use when they give you x-rays. That was my idea to block the signal of any location device the alien soldiers may have. The body armor around its torso had a quick release mechanism. As I expected, because human or alien, a soldier needed to get gear off and on quick. I also popped the latch for the chin strap of its helmet, and for the first time, got a good look at the enemy. One of its eyes was open. There was blood from a cut on its cheek, but I didn't think it was badly hurt, mostly stunned and disoriented. It was wearing an earpiece and microphone, which I tore off, and on its belt was what looked like some kind of radio. I told Tom to throw all of it out the window. We could come back to get it later if we had the opportunity. Our priority then was to capture an alien soldier so our military could study it, see what kind of enemy we were facing. Per the plan, Susie drove us a mile down the road to Tom's place. He had a barn, and she drove the truck right in through the open door, skidding to a stop. We all shared an "oh shit, did that really happen" moment. None of us could believe it. The hamster was moving about, so Tom sat on it, and I pointed a handgun at its face. That calmed it right down. It had probably never seen a SIGSAR before, but it recognized a projectile weapon when it saw it. "I can't hear Diego anymore," Deb reported, holding up her walkie-talkie. "The last thing he said was the aliens were running around, but their ship isn't moving." My last instructions to Diego had been to get out of town in the opposite direction as soon as he lost sight of our truck. I'm sure he was safe. He knew his way around the woods. "They're waiting for a tow truck," I guessed. "What?" Susie asked, like she hadn't heard me right. "A tow truck," I explained. "Their ship is busted. They must have called upstairs to their fleet, and they're waiting for someone to come fix their ship or pick them up. Let's get Fuzzy Face here into the root cellar before his friends get organized and come looking for him." Tom's place had an old root cellar. When I say old, I mean his house dated from 1848, and the root cellar belonged to the house before that. The root cellar had been expanded and converted into a bomb shelter by the family that owned the farm back in the 1950s. Now Tom and his wife Margie used it for storage. We got the hamster down the stairs and cleared space in the middle of the shelter for it. Tom padlocked a chain around its ankle, with the other end of the chain around a pipe sticking out of the floor. With the hamster comfortable in the center, there wasn't much room for the rest of us because of all the shelves. Did I mention that Tom's wife Margie liked to can fruit and veggies? The woman had a bit of a canning problem. The whole place was stacked with jars. Most people in this neck of the woods can stuff. It's a way to have good food through the winter, and a lot cheaper than buying food from the store. My folks made applesauce and jams and canned tomatoes, beans, whatever we got from our garden. Tom's bomb shelter looked like Margie was planning to invite the entire 10th Division over for supper and wanted to have plenty of food left over. "What now?" Stan asked while looking hungrily at a jar of blackberry jam. "Now we wait. The military has got to be here soon." We'd all been surprised not to see any fighter jets or helicopters in their air, which told me the enemy had total air supremacy. "Hopefully this guy's buddies," I pointed to our captive, "will be leaving soon. When our cavalry gets here, we hand him over." "Yeah." "What makes you think they're going to leave?" Deb asked. "Because no way would alien invaders have Thompson Corners on their initial target list. These guys are here only because their ship is busted. My big worry is if they stick around to look for Fuzzy Face after the tow truck gets here. I'll stay with him. The rest of you better head south. See if you can find any National Guard or even state cops." Susie was indignant. "You're sending the women folk away to safety?" She had her hands on her hips. I knew what that meant. You have a family, you..." "So does Tom," Susie pointed out. "Tom got a text from Margie," I said defensively. "She and the kids are all right, heading to her mother's place, and Stan's wife is in Portland. And my husband is down in Millicanac, and my kids are in Bangor with my sister. I'm staying here," Susie said empathetically, and held up her rifle for emphasis. Fine. I conceded without much fight. I really didn't want to be alone. "You and Stan have rifles. You get up in the woods behind the house where you can cover the road. Deb, get up to the rock ledge behind the house. You know it, right? Tell Susie and Stan if you see anything coming this way. Tom and I will stay here with Fuzzy Face." Fuzzy Face wasn't talkative. Tom and I tried communicating with gestures, and pointing to ourselves, the hamster sat there stone-faced. Except when it shifted uncomfortably, then it grimaced. There was blood, red blood on its hip. At least alien blood was red and not green or blue or something really weird like that. I approached slowly, hands open to show I didn't have a knife. We need to look at where you're hurt. I can slowly and loud, which is always the best way for foreigners to understand. Remember, foreigners are stupid, so you have to talk loud and slow so they will understand you. The hamster shrank away from me as far as it could, backed up against a shelf on the outside wall. I gestured to my hip, then his, then put a finger into the blood on the floor, holding my finger up so he could see the blood. Shaking my head and waving my bloody finger, I said, "You're hurt. This is bad." "Bish," Tom said uncertainly, "you sure you should be touching that thing's blood?" "It's got to be safer than touching human blood. You got bandages down here?" "Yeah, first aid kit's in the cabinet. We got paper towels too. Margie buys them by the gross at a warehouse store." The hamster wasn't hurt badly. I blotted the wound clean, washed it with sterile water, which made it wince again, then slathered antiseptic lotion on the cut and applied a bandage. It looked at me different after that, like it hadn't expected humans to be civilized. It made a sort of kissing gesture with its lips. "I think it wants water," Tom guessed. Margie had also bought bottles of water by the gross. We got out 3 bottles. Tom and I both drank from our bottles. Then I opened another and held it to the hamster's lips. It downed half the bottle steadily, while looking me in the eye. That kind of freaked me out. Then it looked down meaningfully at its left front pocket, gesturing with its nose. Very carefully, I opened the pocket flap, which was a kind of magnetic thing, I think, and pulled out what looked like an energy bar. It didn't have bright packaging like the HFY bars I knew from the Army, just a green plastic wrapper with white writing in an alien script. I pulled the end of the plastic wrapper open, facing away from me, which was stupid. What if it was some kind of explosive? And pulling the wrapping just pulled the pin on the grenade. Nothing happened. I sniffed it carefully. It smelled like sugar and nutmeg mixed with sawdust. It was an energy bar for sure. I broke off a piece and fed it to the hamster. It chewed for a long while. I guess their energy bars are as tough as ours. In about 10 minutes, it ate half the energy bar and drank more water, then shook its head when I offered another piece. I felt the same way about our energy bars. Half of one was usually enough for me before my jaw gets tired. In a further attempt at the interspecies cooperation, I held the bar up in front of the hamster as I folded the wrapper over it and tucked the remaining half back in his pocket, next to another 2 full energy bars. It smiled, or tried to. Smiling, without understood context, could be viewed as baring teeth in a threatening manner. The hamster had teeth that weren't much different from human teeth. White enamel, it looked like. The 2 upper front teeth were bigger than in humans, but not comically large like a beaver's teeth. Now that I was closer, the fur on its face was fine. It covered all its skin, but the fur was finer and shorter than a human beard. "You hear that?" Tom asked. "Sounds like someone shouting." We had kept the door to the bomb shelter cracked open so we could hear if Susie saw anything, but mostly closed so any radio signals from an implanted transmitter in our hamster would be blocked, I hoped. Tom stepped outside. I could hear him shouting with Stan. He stuck his head in the door. "They say the tow truck is here." We left our hamster captive in the bomb shelter, root cellar, warehouse, and hustled across Tom's backyard into the woods. "It came from the northwest. I saw the contrail first," Deb reported. "It flew right into the center of town." "I think you're right, Joe. The hamsters here called for a ride." I hope whatever their mission is, it's more important than finding one missing soldier. If the new alien ship picked up the stranded hamsters and left the area, my plan was to load Fuzzy Face back into the ice cream truck and race south on the highway until we found a military unit, probably National Guard, that could take custody of our prisoner. "Let's go up to the rock ledge where we can see." What we saw wasn't good. The new alien ship, same type as the first one, was circling around the town at about 500 feet. It appeared to be flying a search pattern, and pods on the side of the ship had opened, exposing racks of missiles. There was a flash of light, a rumble of thunder, and a column of smoke from the center of town. "They blew up their busted ship," I announced, as if everyone hadn't guessed that. "That's interesting." "Why?" Deb asked. "I think it means they don't plan to stay here. At least not here." I pointed toward the town. "And they don't want us poking around their technology while they're gone. If they planned on staying here, they would have brought a repair crew." The ship climbed, hovered, then slowly headed toward us. Not toward us exactly, but east, then along the river. "Shit," Stan spat on the ground. "They must have a signal from that stuff we threw out of the truck." I tried to assure people, "Nobody panic. That's why we threw that stuff out of the truck, and that's why our hamster is under concrete and earth right now, behind a steel door." After our captive was in the root cellar, Stan had thrown the lead blankets over the hood and tailpipe of the truck to reduce the heat signature. Unless they can somehow track us into Tom's barn, it will take them a long while to search everywhere, and they don't know we're not already 10 miles down the road. Stan and Deb had argued for us to keep driving, rather than stopping at Tom's place, to put as much distance as we could between us and Thompson Corners before an alien rescue ship arrived. I had vetoed that idea because we didn't know how soon another alien ship would arrive, and because I didn't entirely trust the lead blankets to block a tracking signal. We didn't even know whether the aliens used radio. They may have some more exotic technology. If the aliens could track a signal, it didn't matter whether we were 1 mile or 50 miles away, they were going to find us. Tom's combination, root cellar, bomb shelter was perfect to hide a technologically advanced alien. Whether my plan was any good depended on what the aliens did. The alien ship slowly made its way along the river, then sped up and followed the highway south toward us. After circling twice, it descended out of sight below the tree line. For a moment, just a peaceful moment, things looked almost like a normal October day in rural Maine. Tom and Margie's house was tidy. He had a couple cords of firewood nicely stacked in a line behind the house. Margie had corn stalks tied around the lamppost in the front yard, getting ready early for Halloween like she always did. In the backyard, she had the bathtub Madonna decorated also with a... Oh, I'd better explain what a bathtub Madonna is to you uncultured types. You take an old bathtub, set it on end half buried in the ground, paint the outside white and the inside a light blue, and then you put a statue of the Virgin Mary under the ark, like a grotto. It's a homemade shrine of sorts. These days you can buy ones already made out of concrete, but that's cheating, and God knows if you did it the lazy way. Most people put stones or flowers around it. Margie's shrine was surrounded by brightly colored mums. Or I thought they were mums. I'm not a flower expert. The Madonna had been there when Margie and Tom bought the house, and Margie spruced it up with the flowers. She also decorated it for the seasons. At Christmas time, Mary had a little Santa hat. Right now, for Halloween, Mary was wearing a Jedi Knight outfit, complete with glowing lightsaber that Tom had hooked up. I hope God had a good sense of humor. Across the road, there were pine trees, lots of pine trees, and then flat fields, a glimpse of the river. It was a nice sunny day, except for the pillars of smoke coming from town, from the smoldering potato warehouse and the burned-out alien ship. And except for the other alien ship now climbing back into the sky, it zoomed up to 1,000 feet and hovered. "Yup," I said. "They found that alien stuff we threw out of the truck and dropped off some guys to check it out. That ship up there is providing close air support to the guys on the ground. Tom, there's," I counted on my fingers, 7 houses between here and where they are?" 10, Tom corrected me. "You didn't include the McDonald and Burgess places back off the road, and the old gas station fruit stand that's been abandoned for 20 years. That's 10 places with multiple structures like barns and garages. They'll be thorough searching each one, right? And that takes time." I bit my lip, which is a thing I did when I was thinking. The alien commander up there has no idea where we took his soldier. What would I do in his situation? We could be in any house or barn around here. We could be in a cave in the woods. We could be 10 miles down the road. He has no idea. Unless our captive had some sort of transmitter that could be detected even from the bomb shelter. They did, after all, have technology to travel between stars. I tapped my chin. That's another thing I did. Then I was thinking, they only sent one ship. If this was a search and rescue mission, they would have sent several ships. This guy started down from orbit before we grabbed Fuzzy Face. He only planned to pick up hamsters from the first ship. Well, what does that mean? Susie asked. It means the next 5 minutes will tell us what their orders are. If that ship recovers the guys on the ground and flies away, then they're sticking to their original mission plan, and they'll handle search and rescue later. If that ship hangs around, then they've scrubbed the original plan, and they're waiting for reinforcements to sweep the area. That's what you do? Susie asked. That's what we do, the Army. The alien ship descended again, then climbed and resumed hovering closer to us. Damn it, it's option B. He just dropped off more guys to start searching buildings. I saw Susie check her rifle again. Susie, forget about any cowboy Alamo last stand shit. All we've got is 3 rifles, a shotgun, and 2 pistols. If they get close, we head east through the woods. The missiles on that ship could kill all of us from 10,000 feet. We're going to give up? We're not giving up. We're being realistic. I couldn't believe I was arguing with Susie about this. We can't use the ice cream truck again. It's too distinctive, and that alien ship is too close. Fine, Susie shot back. We wrap our Fuzzy Face in lead blankets and carry him into the woods here. It's only a mile to the river from here. We can... Hey, Deb shouted. The sky! More lights! We looked up to see the morning sky twinkling again. There were a lot of lights up there. Oh, damn it! They're bringing in more ships, Deb asked. That can't be. Whoa! We looked away, spots swimming in our eyes from a searingly bright explosion in the sky right above us. I blinked, staring at the ground, my shadow flickering as more explosions lit up the sky. Yeah, Stan pumped his fist. We're hitting back. Nuke the bastards. No way, I shook my head. Our nukes don't have seeker warheads. They can only hit a pre-programmed targets on the ground. Unless the Air Force had some amazing toys I didn't know about. There were still spots in my eyes. I shielded my eyes and looked toward the horizon. More explosions in the sky, farther away. That's not us. Was that an EMP blast? The aliens setting off a nuke high in the sky to knock out our electronics? We didn't know it then, but the second set of lights in the sky was a Kristang battle group jumping into orbit, then attacking the Ruhar. Then who is it? Tom asked. Hey, look! Debbie pointed up the road. The alien ship that was tracking our captive was descending again, fast. It was on the ground only a few minutes before taking off again, and this time it stood on its tail and went straight up, fast. We heard a sonic boom, and it left a contrail behind. Wherever it was going, it was in a hurry. Whatever's going on up there, that ship just got new orders. Let's get Fuzzy Face in the truck again and bring him to the National Guard Armory before they come back. Then what? Tom asked as we scrambled down the trail, all of us glancing at the sky. We needed to get Fuzzy Face away from the area before the aliens changed their minds again. Then I see what my orders are. If I couldn't contact the 10th Division, I'd hook up with a local National Guard or reserve unit for now. And we survive. I have a feeling Margie's warehouse of canned goods is going to be more important than these guns with winter coming on.